Okay, I'm going to skip the commercial this time. I have a company. I'm the sole proprietor of Agile Unlimited in Santa Rosa. I do Agile coaching, training, and software development. End of commercial. Here's what we got coming up. Mainly it's an exercise, as some of you have done something similar before, where we're going to look at 3 related metrics: work in process, and cycle time and lead time. And sometimes cycle time and lead time are kind of confusing. So these are the simple definitions and the most useful ones, I think. WIP, everybody gets already, I imagine. It's a commonly used term. Cycle time is the time it takes to complete 1 unit of work. Some people say it's something about, well, they describe it differently and it's more confusing, but think about how long does it take to get 1 unit of work done, or at what rate do things come out the end of your system? If you think of your system as like a series of steps, whatever you're building, something physical or something not physical, something virtual. Look at the rate at which the things come out the end, and you'll get the cycle time. And then the lead time is also defined kind of in a confusing fashion in some places. It's the time that it takes to complete a particular unit of work, not just any unit of work, but one particular one. So if you feed this into the system, how long does it take to get out the end? And cycle time and lead time can go in steps sometimes. I mean, they seem to track each other. They're not the same units, but they seem to track. And sometimes the lead time can just grow and grow and grow. And this is not good. Lead time growing is a real sign of something's not ever going to get done. So let's set up an assembly line. See the people, the faces down there? Mm-hmm. Those are you guys. So we need somebody to. I'll pass these things out now. I got these board sections here that I made up. I made these up out of my own head. Got the blue tape in case you need to tape your piece down. Here are the units of work. Oh, here you go, Mike. I get the standard giveaways.
Yep.
So this is going to form one line here. This many people. So on the left-hand side, we start with the backlog, and somebody's going to sit slightly to the right of that. Where's your line going to be? You all have to sit together. Okay. And we have two people in there that can't be you because you're going to leave. So you can't sit at that end. You'll have to move. But this can go down there anyway. Okay. So you see how somebody sits in front of the backlog, and then there's several to do and doing columns that would be all 3 of you. So each of you take one of those and put that in front of you.
I'm done.
No, you see there's nobody in front of Dunn. Dunn is to your right.
Steve's done. Steve's the best.
All right. So let me pass these out to you. And one more.
Is it one?
Everybody gets one. See where we are here. So where we set up, you might want to put a small piece of tape on the top of that or something to keep it from moving around. Because now you're going to have to be able to reach his card. So Ming, you're probably going to want to there. Yeah. Everybody's going to be able to reach the card to their right.
If you hang on to this, then Steve will know we'll find the end again. That's the most important part of the rule.
All right, now you have an additional task here. Each of you gets one of these as well. I'll just pass the bag. Good. All right, now, let's see who's the most important person in the, I'm going to go back to the diagram here. The green fellow right there, the most important person in the organization. That's the one who is not sitting next to the done, but the person before that. That would be you.
Oh,
You're the most important person in the organization.
all right, okay,
No questions about that, huh? That's good.
sure.
That's good.
No complaint.
So what you want to do is you want to take your sticky here, take one of them, write the number 6 on it, and put that right in the seconds per unit box, in the box, up there, yeah, right. Everybody else, take your sticky, write the number 2 on it.
Do I need to do that?
No, just everybody else. And put it in that same box, the seconds per unit box.
What about me?
Oh, no, not you,
Except me.
yeah. All right, this is going to be interesting. This is a really small assembly line. The results are more obvious with more people, but we'll see. That represents the number of seconds it takes you to process a unit of work. So it takes you 2 seconds to process a unit of work. It takes you 6 seconds. This is why you're the most important person in the organization.
I'm the slowest.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And you go for 2 seconds to process a unit of work. Now, the way you do that is, I notice you're not in this line.
Well, I'm going to be filling in at 8.
Oh, right. Oh, good. Good thinking. The way you do that is you're going to stock up your backlog a little bit so you have a few in there. And your job is to feed a unit of work at a time over to the next operation here. And you do that by placing that over her purse into her to-do column. When you have something to do, what you do, and this is for everybody, if you have something in to do, you take it, you pick it up, you put it in doing, and then you count 2 seconds and move it along to the next to do. All right? Don't count it while it's in to do. Wait till it's in doing. Once it hits doing, you count to 2 and then move it along. And Ming, you do the same. When you have something in to do and you move it into doing, then count 6 seconds, move it along. And same for Sam. When I first started using these materials, I mean, I created these myself, but when I first started using them, not only were they really big, and I've scaled them down, I was using regular size 3x5 stickies, and so I had to have really big boards. They had to be on a wall, and I carried them around in a big portfolio. I eventually miniaturized this because I found these lovely little tiny stickies, and I also I wrote some software so that I would have a counter. You can get minute and second timers, but they all follow the convention of rolling over at 60. And I wanted people just to be able to count numbers of seconds. I wanted a second timer, only seconds. So I wrote my own. And I put it on the laptop and I display it and people could look at the clock and see. And then one day, it was such a mess, you know, it was all too complicated. So one day I realized, it just struck me that everybody I've ever met knows how to count seconds in some fashion. Me, I do 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, like that. But
That's the accepted.
you may have some other way. You have a favorite way of counting seconds? When you count seconds, do you use like alligators or hippopotamus or something like that?
1001 I think works.
Everybody can have their own.
Yeah.
And it's interesting if they do. So think of your favorite way of counting seconds, and let's count to 10 together, starting now.
1001, 1002.
Let me hear you.
1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. There you go.
All right, let's do that again. Out loud, really loud this time, and let the room hear you. Begin.
1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010.
See? We don't need any fancy software. We've got this. So that's, count your favorite way, but count seconds. And go ahead and stock up your backlog with
So as an example, what do I put here to work?
nothing. It's just a unit of work.
Just a sticky.
Yeah.
Okay.
So go ahead and populate that a little bit. Put some blank stickies on your paper.
Oh, here.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
yeah. You don't have to write anything on them. Just
Got it.
you're going to be feeding the line, so you're going to want to have a few ahead, and you don't know how many that's going to be yet. So
And I pass them on as fast as I can, or
I'll give you a specific instruction in a moment. Actually, your job is to make sure that the first operation there always has work to do, and that's all. Make sure that to-do never gets empty. That's all you have to do. So you keep pace with that.
I see.
And everybody else do your counting. This is, I was going to say it was a little artificial, but now that I think about it, it's actually not. When people do this in the real world, one of the ways of feeding the line, whatever it is they're making, is to watch and see if they're running out of work to do and feed some more in. So it mimics that. Huh. I don't know what happened.
I think it's just your screen. Is it still showing on there?
It's fine now. I thought I had the screensaver turned off. Oh well. All right, so what we're going to do, oh, wait a minute. One more set of papers. This is for production manager. That would be you. And when this gets filled out, you can have help with it. It's not like you have to do it all yourself. But we want to record some information after we're done with this first round here. So,
Does it help to put numbers on this?
we don't actually need them for this exercise. Sometimes I do. Sometimes they're numbered so we can keep track of them, and then we record times on them as well. But not for this one. This is something different.
All right.
At least I think this is the one where we don't have numbers on them. I could be wrong. I don't know.
We'll find
No, I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to get a clock timer going here. Stopwatch. Timer, stopwatch is what I want. He mumbled. So, are you ready to try one
Yeah.
pass?
Sure.
So, everybody clear on the instructions? Anybody have any questions about process? All right. Well, let's see how many we can move down to done in 2 minutes, starting now.
With the count, choose.
It's got to go to doing first. That's about 4 seconds right there. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. Are you counting in your head?
Yeah, it's a little confusing because I don't want to.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Stop, I interrupted this. That's not going to, I can see what's going to happen. Let's back them up to the beginning again. We'll try again. I was just observing, it seemed like you were counting slowly. And you want to go 1001,
So
1000.
after I put it over here,
Yeah.
to the next
Right.
person.
And I counted 4 seconds when you did that.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Sorry, let's just try again. Is there a problem feeding the stuff in? Are you lacking work or
No,
anything?
I was just trying to figure out the very first time
Yeah,
what needs to be
it takes a while to get into the rhythm of this. I see people starting to count when it's in to do, and then they stop and whatever, you know, but this, anytime it's in doing means you're doing it,
doing it.
so
you count two and
count 2 and move it along. All right.
then you pick subtract here and then start over.
Yeah, it's a whole nother
For each item.
item, yeah.
And you can only do one at a time, right?
At this moment, we haven't set a width limit.
That's right. I think, yeah, that's all right.
Okay.
We're gonna get
So,
a benchmark.
But this poor gentleman might have more than one piece of
Mhm.
work in
Yeah.
process. of-
That's true. This is the benchmarking
It makes
phase.
the counting difficult. It makes the counting of seconds quite difficult, I think.
He has to count to 6 in any case.
True.
But I could keep stacking it up in this.
Oh, yes. Everybody work as fast as they can.
Okay.
Yeah, so you want to start again? Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, 2 minutes starting now. There you go. Sometimes the room is full of noise at this point. Everybody's counting.
counting.
Yeah.
And music's playing out in the hallway, but it doesn't come in here.
1 minute remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Ten seconds. 5 seconds. And stop. You know, if the boss was walking around here, you might get fired. Look at all that extra work that you've got. What's going on here? Everybody else is clearing their desk, and you've got this pile. You must be the most important person in the organization because, well, tell me why. You are the bottleneck, but that's not why, that's what. What makes you the most important person? Anybody?
Because we have to do that task before we move on and do anything else. So
Yeah,
the work is incomplete if it's.
I think of it as the bottleneck setting the pace for the entire line. No, the line cannot move faster than the bottleneck can move. And this makes you the most important person, meaning they won't let you take breaks. You know, you have to work longer and you're still only getting, you know, this many done. Boy, I don't know. In some places they just fire you. They get somebody in who could do it faster, or they think so. All right. Now I'm a big proponent of leveraging bottlenecks for what they are, which is they're facts. Okay, there are bottlenecks in systems. Any system that has dependent operations in it, chained together like this, is going to have a bottleneck. It's just going to. People, when they're addressing bottlenecks, the common intuitive and wrong thing they do is think about how to improve, how to eliminate the bottleneck. And that may or may not be the right thing to do. The right thing to do may be to subordinate everybody else to the bottleneck, or to move the bottleneck to where you want it to be. So getting rid of it is not the first thing that you should jump to. Anyway, let's tally this up. Let's see how many units of work we got done.
So, Mr. Shareholder, we have 15, which is quite interesting, actually.
How so?
It has 120 seconds, and it should take 10 seconds to process each period of work, so actually, we should all get a bonus.
Run those figures by me again?
120 seconds.
Yeah.
Total amount of work time is 10 seconds,
Uh-huh.
and yet we have 15 pieces of work done. So.
How many would you expect to have done?
12 or less.
No, because it's not sequential, there's an overlap, so it's only 6 seconds
There's some
overlap, right?
overlap,
Because of bottleneck,
okay.
so every 6 seconds, there should be units that come through.
Okay, fair.
Even though each of these takes.
Those calculations are easier to do when the system becomes stable. That is, everybody's populated with work. There's extra time that nothing is apparently getting done. It's not coming out the end until everybody's got some work to do, and so on and so forth. So, I'm sorry, your name again is?
J,
Jay?
yes,
Jay, you want to fill out the first row?
yes, 15, right?
15,
Units completed.
and the work in process is the number that have been put into the system but not done.
So it's 2 plus 8. 8 plus 2. 10. Now how many do you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus 2, 10.
And then cycle time is expressed in units of seconds per unit. I said units twice. It's how many seconds over how many completed. Yeah.
By 15, correct?
Yes.
That would be 240 by 30, 80, 8 seconds per unit, right?
Oh, I don't know. It's different every time.
We should be able to figure it out in half an hour, so. I guess it's 8, isn't it? It's,
I think it's
120 by 15
And
is
8 times
240
15 is
by
120. Yeah.
8.
I like his arithmetic method better. I don't like that.
Mine's the calculator.
And for lead time, let's just leave that off for right now.
Okay.
All right? So let's talk just for a moment about what's going on here. I mean, obviously you recognize this operation as the bottleneck operation, right? And you realize that this is the throttle. This is the speed that limits the whole system, regardless of what kind of system it is. If it's got dependent operations that are chained together like this, the bottleneck rules. Most important person in the organization. Okay. We've got the cycle time, and we're skipping the lead time on this one just for right now. All right, let's put some whip limits here and run this again and see what happens. So run the units of work back to the beginning again. We can recycle those.
Thank you.
All right. Everybody that has a to-do and doing card, take another sticky, write the number 1 on it. Put it up there. That's exactly right. You have just created a Kanban board. the difference between, the basic difference between a Kanban board and a task board is that the Kanban board has WIP limits on it. In fact, you could put a WIP limit anywhere on this board, and that would technically be a Kanban board. And you get the term Kanban, you know what that's about? You know the origin of that?
Read about it.
Yeah, signal card, right? It's just a way of signaling somebody that there's something to be done. And it can take all kinds of forms as long as there's some kind of a token that represents work to be done, or when to do work, I should actually say that. When to do work, then it's a Kanban system of some kind. It's a Japanese word, meaning sign, I think billboard, and signal card. Pick any one of those. It's informational. So this is going to change how we work. And the rule is, let me come over there and look at it from your point of view. The rule is you cannot move something into this slot if there's anything in it. You have to wait till it's empty.
And same for,
He can only have one unit of work in there, and you've got to follow that. Your job, Jay, is still to make sure that this operation does not starve
Right.
or get flooded.
Okay.
I don't know why the inverse of starve is flood here. Should be feast. I don't know. Gorge.
It's a point of view, I guess.
Yeah. So you are essentially doing the same thing. And everybody else, you do the same thing too with that extra restriction, the constraint that you cannot move something into the next to-do if it's got even one in it. Okay? I picked one for simplicity's sake. Sometimes one would be the correct number. When you're working with, if this were a software development organization here, and you were doing like, I don't know, design and spec, code, and QA. Well, no, it isn't. I mean, those phases exist in Agile development as well. They're just done on a different cycle. Yeah. What was my point? If this was one of those, it may come back to me. I'll move on. I've completely forgot what I was talking about. Let's see. So, same rules. I think we're ready to go. Are you ready?
Yep.
Another 2 minutes. Starting now. Okay, stop. I remember what it was. If this were a software development organization, unless it was very small like this and you had only one person per job, then you would probably have higher numbers as WIP limits. For example, it's very common to have the WIP limit be the number of people that are in that operation. So 3 developers, you might go up to 3, like that. That's the next more complex thing than this. So thanks for letting me get that out. Let's just start again. Ready?
Yeah.
Begin.
it's empty.
One minute remaining. 30 seconds. Fifteen seconds. Five. And stop. All right. How was the pace for you compared to the first time, Sam?
About the same.
About the same. And how was the pace for you? The same? And you, both of you?
I had to wait because I couldn't pass it on, so I was just spending more time sitting idle.
Yeah, yeah, that would happen. You're upstream, right? And you're downstream from the bottleneck, so it wouldn't actually change for you. And you just were feeding stuff in.
Right.
So that tells me how many people is the minimum to run this this exercise. I thought it was. Yeah, well, I can't run it with 3. That's right. So 4 would be the minimum. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
So the number of work in progress items is less now, correct? Because of the constraint.
Yeah, let's record that.
So,
So let's fill that out again.
units completed.
Let's figure out what the cycle time is.
But how many units completed? 15?
I love it when it comes out like that. It often doesn't.
Yes,
Really?
But this is. but then
It's
this-
close,
Mm-hmm.
and it's because of the difference in counting rate at the bottleneck,
Right.
right? Sometimes from phase to phase, the bottleneck person will count slower or faster, and that'll change the number of things that get done. And people immediately start to think that that they got more efficient or something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a talk about, no, it's just counting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but perfect. So, I mean, is this surprising to anybody? That you got the same number done and yet you were not working as fast?
A little bit.
Is that's counterintuitive? At least it was to me when I discovered this or when I learned about it, which is many years ago now. That's what got me interested in pursuing this in the first place, was this exercise, a different one that I sat in on at a conference where we demonstrated by doing that if you slow down, if you slow some people down, you actually get more value. You don't get more done, but you get less not done. Is that right?
And that is true now, right? Because there are fewer work in progress here now.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4,
As
so
against 10 earlier,
put that down.
which means team's probably less stressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Positive environment. People
Yeah.
enjoy going to work.
Yeah.
It would be an interesting work environment indeed if they would let people just work this way. But you can see that there's a resistance because if somebody, the supervisor came around and saw you idling, they would go, hey, if you don't have something to do, I'll find something for you to do, right? I mean, that's how managers think.
Well, maybe they'll fire that person first.
They might.
You're good, Ming. You're in the clear.
They might.
Depending on how they look at
Busy.
it.
You're already busy.
Yeah.
Some time for social network.
The
Yeah.
perception is that you're wasting the company's time by idling. In fact, you're making the company money by idling. Let's go back to the first phase for a moment when the work was piling up over here. Consider that each of those units of work cost some money to put into production in the first place. And tell me what the result is of never changing the way that you were working there. This is the bottleneck. Everybody else is working as fast as they can. What happens with this backlog of pieces here? Does it ever top out? Does it ever stop at a certain number and be stable, or is it always going to change? If we ran it for more than 2 minutes, if we just kept running it, what would happen over here? It would still be growing, right?
No, because she's waiting
Because I'm
until his
No, I'm talking about in the first time we did it. when it was piling up.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
That
so,
would just keep it.
so if you keep running that
Mhm.
and things come into the system faster than they come out of the system, what happens?
Things would, a lot of work in progress would pile up.
And does the work all get done then?
No,
So you have orders that come in, or features that come in
yes.
that pile up, and they're not ever going to get done because of this imbalance, because people are working too fast.
Right.
They're working ahead of the bottleneck,
Mhm.
right? So, I mean, that seems weird that you could feed things into a queue that's emptying out, and that some stuff would never get done. But that is the case.
Right.
Just imagine that.
And it leads to possible errors, because then he might pick up something out of sequence or something. Can
It could be a real mess, and it's especially a mess when you have physical inventory,
Yeah.
because it physically piles up
Yeah.
all over the place, and it can be awful.
Right.
So unless you change something, like everybody stops work and lets him clear out his backlog, or do what we did, throttle it back and distribute that time over the whole run of the project, then it's a bad situation to be in. That's a red flag. You see work piling up, and you see that the system is geared to let it keep piling up, that's just yell, stop the line. This is wrong, and it's going to cost us money. Anyway. Okay, what about lead time? We need to figure out the lead time here. And this is how long it takes any particular unit of work to make it through the system. Now, in that first case, the lead time would be growing, right? You got a pile up coming here, and you put something in the system here. Some things make it through, and some things it takes longer. For each successive unit, it's going to take longer for it to get through. And if that becomes greater than the rate at which you can clear them, then you have the situation we were just talking about. So, but we can calculate the lead time. The more WIP, the longer the lead time. And here's the simple formula that ties these things all together. The lead time is the number of units of work in process times the cycle time. So you can fill out that sheet and give us a lead time for this second phase that we did, round 2.
Oh, okay. 80 seconds plus second time is 32 seconds. So the lead time went down considerably in the second phase.
So what are the numbers?
80 in the first round, 32 second round.
So by the time we got to the end of the first round, the lead time was 80 seconds.
80 seconds.
Wow. And then if we did that for another 2 minutes, just kept running it, that number would just, I suppose it would double. It seems like it's linear proportion to me. It's not exponential or anything. So that would just keep going up. That system never becomes stable, right? The other one, what's the time on it?
32 seconds.
Okay, and you could probably, I think it shapes out to be a little bit better if you run the system for a while, because the system is not stable until everybody's populated, right? And once it becomes populated, then you can get a real metric for it. But this is close enough to demonstrate the principle that if you have limits on the amount of work you have in process at any given time, then you can calculate how long it's going to take any unit from anywhere to get done out the end of the system, right? So these calculations are assuming starting at the backlog. But if you were running like a development operation or some kind of process, you could look at if you had a Kanban board Kanban board, you could look at any of the units and figure out how many units are in front of it, that it has to wait for, and calculate the lead time from there.
Yes.
The cycle time is the same, always the same. for a stable system. And the lead time depends on that and the number of units of work in process, and that's it. It's that simple. So you can use WIP limits to aid in predicting schedule. If you do it the other way, you can actually, it's a little slightly more complicated because you have to take into account an increasing number of units and more time. But I'm sure you could figure it out. I don't know why you'd want to. The best thing to do would be to fix it. But you might have to figure that out to demonstrate to somebody how it's going to get worse and worse. Or you could just have me come in and I'll do this for a fee. So, units of measure. I was going to use the word units as the units for WIP, but I didn't want to have the units be called units, so I thought it was confusing. So I'm just calling these things gadgets. The yellow sticky is a gadget. Whatever your feature you're putting in your software or story you're working on is a gadget. And then the cycle time is expressed in time per gadget. That's the units. Lead time is expressed in time only. It's interesting that they call cycle time time. It's kind of time, but it's specifically time per gadget. And algebraically, that works out. You can see that the lead time, I'll go back to the other slide. Lead time is what we're after here, is WIP times cycle time. And so lead time there, time equals the number of gadgets times time per gadget. You see that gadgets cancel out algebraically. And so you have time equals time.
Yep.
And in parentheses there, cycle time is the inverse of throughput. And that's sometimes useful to know. That would be gadgets per time, for some amount of time. How many gadgets per hour can you make, right? And to emphasize this, I put this at the end as well. The rate of the bottleneck is the rate of the entire system. That's true, that's true. Any questions?
No, it's very clear. It's a really good exercise. It brings out the
Thank you.
point very clear.
I tend to produce things that are simple.
Yes.
And
Really obvious.
some people say that's because I'm simple-minded, but I kind of take exception to that sometimes.
It's harder to devise simple solutions.
All right. Yep, that's the end.
Well, I picked the card because I wanted to catch you before you left. It was 73. We're raffling Steve's book, Predictability. Does anyone have 70? I gave each of you guys a
I'm
a
sorry.
raffle.
okay.
You got 72?
72.
Is that Ming?
It's over there on my right.
Bring the book.
Under your right finger.
At
No.
the end of your book.
Under the book.
Pretty sure you got it
Oh,
because
wait.
I got
No,
74.
below that, yeah.
Have you got this before?
Yeah, I already get this before.
You guys
someone
want
else.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there's that as well.
Oh. The other one. 2-hour workshop on the topic of your choice. Delivered on site at your company, courtesy of Agile Limited.
That's me. So, pull another number.
Pull another number. 71. We got a double winner over here.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I never get lucky, so
I would say tonight the odds are pretty good. A little bit better,
Yeah.
a little better than the lottery.
Yeah, so if you're interested in the book, it is available at Amazon for a really reasonable price. I think it's $14.95. And they're doing a bundle, so if you buy the book, the paper copy first, you get a Kindle version for like $1 or $2. So there's that. All right, and that's all I got, so thank you all for playing.
Thank you.
thank you.